Reinventing yourself, a fresh new opportunity. What are we talking about when we use these words, reinventing ourselves? We're talking about personal transformation. We're talking about becoming the person that we truly want to be. And the first question is why? Why do I want to reinvent myself? And the second question is how? Why? Because there is a question flying up into the air. Are we living to our fullest potential? Do you have the sense when you wake up in the morning that you are living to your fullest potential? When you have to deal with challenge, a problem, do you have the feeling that you are using all your capacities, all your talents, and all your dormant energies? Okay, Mario, let's say that we are aware that we are not living to our fullest potential, but how can we overcome the limits of our minds? This is what we are going to see throughout this talk. First, we have to go back to the 17th century. You can see on the screen a very well and respected philosopher. His name was René Descartes. And he's very well known for his works. He was the father of modern philosophy and the father of rationalist philosophy. He stated something very profound, who had an influence in our modern society. He said, "Cogito ergo sum." I think, therefore I am. I think, therefore I exist. He put a lot of emphasis in the power of the intellectual mind. And in some way he neglected the power of other part of ourselves, which is at least as powerful as the intellectual mind. We all know from experience. Nobody has to tell us that, because we already know that our emotions, not our intellectual mind, our emotions drive creativity, drive energy and behavior. So how comes that since the 17th century we haven't given emotions such an importance in our lives, such an importance to transform ourselves so that we become the people that we truly want to be? When we find purpose, true purpose and meaning in our mind, in our being, we unleash our personal power. So if you want to unleash your true power, the power that you have as human beings, don't pay too much emphasis on the intellectual mind. Go to what really inspires you, what really touches you, what really moves you to become your best. So the key is not resources. Many times when we are faced with change, ambiguity, and uncertainty, we start to ponder, if I had enough external resources, if I could have more tools, then I would dare to take that step forward. The key is not resources. The key is resourcefulness, which means your inner resources, your dormant energies, capacities, and talents. And I will tell you a story, a very beautiful and profound story, that in some way conveys us this message: the power of emotions to unleash our inner power. You can see here on the screen a girl with a woman. The girl was born in Alabama at the end of the 19th century. She was born without any physical disability. But when she was 16 months old, she got very sick. She had a meningitis. And as a consequence, she became blind, deaf, and mute. Very few people thought that this girl had any future. who would have a future being blind, being deaf, and being mute. But the woman who is with her, Annie Sullivan, thought that this little girl had a bright future. If she could tap into her dormant energy, if she could inspire that lady to become who she could truly be. As a consequence of this interaction, this little girl, Helen Keller, became the first woman in history who graduated with honors from Harvard University. Here you can see Helen Keller with Anne Sullivan playing chess. On one occasion, when she was a very famous lady, a news reporter interviewed her, and he asked her, "Miss Keller, is there anything worse than being blind?" And she answered, "Yes, sir. There is something worse. It's worse if you can see, but you don't have a vision. Because depending on how you see the future, you live the present." This is a very powerful message, and we need to reflect upon it. Because what these two women were telling us is that we do not need to be trapped in a way of being in case that we don't like it. We can set ourselves free. That's the first message. The second message is that our biography is not our destiny. Your past doesn't determine your future. So we can get rid of all those excuses. If I had been loved more, I would be different. If I had gone through the university, I would have a bright future. Your past, it's not your future unless you decide so. You are a free human being. You can make your own choices in life, despite what the past is telling you. The third message, if you really want to unleash your true potential, you need to spend time creating a compelling future, using your imagination, looking for that possibility who truly inspires you to become your best. Once, many years ago, I felt the need to reinvent myself. And I looked for that possibility, and the possibility was personal freedom. I needed a kind of freedom that I was not experiencing in my life. And that possibility truly inspired me, touched my heart, moved my action. And I know how many windows have opened in my life because I decided to create that possibility within my heart. So, if we summarize what we have seen already, we can say that the future is not something we enter. The future is something that we create, using the power of our imagination, using the power of our commitment, being courageous in life, allowing ourselves to be inspired by who we truly could become. I know from my own experience, it is quite difficult to leave our comfort zone because it gives us a sense of security, of stability. And when we look beyond that comfort zone, we only see darkness. We only see fear, confusion. This is the moment in which we really need to have faith in ourselves, be inspired by our possibilities, And despite the fear, despite the frustration, despite the doubts, take a step forward, jump. And when we jump, then we find our wings. Many people consider that they will jump when they know what is ahead. But in order to see what is ahead, first you have to jump. Because what is ahead is not something that you will see from your comfort zone. It's something that you have to create it through your imagination. Only when you have crossed that threshold, because then you have a level of awareness which is completely different. The question is there any scientific basis to help us understand that when we dare and we cross that threshold, when we get out of our comfort zone into the unknown, is there any scientific basis to support us so that we feel that something is being transformed in the process of jumping? Yes, it is. But let me tell you something that you already know. This is the hero's journey. Whenever you leave your fears, whenever you leave your doubts, whenever you find the courage within yourself to cross that threshold, you're starting your hero's journey. And here you see a human brain. We know, because we have very powerful neuroimaging techniques, that when we have the courage to cross the threshold, because we're inspired by a possibility, we are seeing in our mind's eye our dream. Despite the fact that we feel the fear, the frustration, the sense of being lost, there are so profound changes in the brain. For instance, it has been shown that when we feel that inspiration, that thrill coming from our dream, despite the fear and despite the doubts, there is an increase in the blood flow of the prefrontal cortex of the brain. You see here some of the arteries of the prefrontal cortex. It means, in plain words, that we analyze much better, that we become more alert, that we learn faster, and we are more creative. This is the activating reticular system, which is in the middle of the brain. When we have faith in our possibilities, when we are inspired by those possibilities, despite the fear and despite the doubts, this part of the brain works much more effectively. It means that you see much more, that you are less distracted, that you make little mistakes, not huge, because you can see more. But if there is a person in the whole history of humankind who has shown us the power of believing in our dreams, of taking that step forward into the unknown, inspired by that dream, by that possibility, that person is Santiago Ramon y Cajal. He won the Nobel Prize in Physiology and Medicine in 1906 for his amazing discoveries of the neurons. And he said, all human beings can become, if they truly want, sculptures of their own brain. Many people thought when he said those words that he was speaking metaphorically. He was speaking literally. He couldn't demonstrate it because he didn't have at that time knowledge, which is needed in order to demonstrate his findings. But let me explain to all of you what he found. These are some of his wonderful drawings. He found something very peculiar on the dendrites of the neurons. Those tiny structures that he called spikes. And he thought that when you really embark yourself in this hero's journey, the number of spikes would increase. Those spikes are needed in order to create new connections with other neurons, what we call synapses. Synapses take place at the level of the spikes. So what Santiago Ramón y Cajal discovered was that when we are inspired, touched, and moved by a possibility, and we are there to take a step forward and to cross that threshold, when we get out of our comfort zone, the neurons start to connect in a fashion, which means that you become smarter, you become more intelligent. There is also another finding which is much more recent. It was the result of a collaboration between the Karolinska Institute and the Salk Institute in San Diego. These are stem cells located within the brain, in the cavities of the brain. It has been shown that when you take that step forward, when you cross that threshold of your comfort zone, when you are inspired by your possibility, those stem cells migrate from the ventricles, the cavities of the brain, into the hippocampus, which is a structure essential not only to learn, essential not only to fight against your fear, but also it's a structure that can rewire your brain, can transform your own identity. So we can reinvent ourselves. Every day is a fresh opportunity to do so. Here you have some stem cells in the hippocampus, which are being transformed into new neurons. So today I have a proposal for all of you. The proposal is the following one. Spend time dreaming. Spend time finding your possibility. What is that possibility that could transform my own life? Maybe it's the possibility of being courageous. Maybe it's the possibility of being bold. Maybe it's the possibility of being patient, of being free, of being generous. And do not hesitate to allow that possibility to touch your heart. Because at the level of your heart is where your true talents and capacities are hidden. The head will do what the heart will tell the head to do. Remember the hand. Your possibility. Commit to your possibility. If your possibility is not a priority, it will not have any power on you. Every day we have to do something to make that possibility real in our lives. A little step. Plan, a little plan. You don't have to create a wonderful, a huge, a perfect plan. A little plan, small plan. Act according to that plan. Learn from the mistakes and improve. Think big. You deserve to think big. You deserve to have a good life. You deserve to make your dreams real. If you are reasonable in life, you will achieve only what is expected, not what is possible. Be unreasonable. All the people who made their dreams true were unreasonable. They were not reasonable. They were unreasonable. They threw their heart and the rest followed. Your heart has an inner wisdom. But we think that all the wisdom is up in our heads. Ask yourself two questions. The first one is a well-known question, and it's very powerful. But do not answer those questions with your intellectual mind. Allow your whole being to be surrounded by the question. Let that question go right to your heart. The first one is, what would I dare to do if I knew that I could not fail? We know this question. We have seen this question several times. Why? Because it's so powerful. And the second question is, what is the smallest step that I dare to take? Think big, act small, but with that vision in your behavior. Because if you act, and at the same time that you are acting, you are feeling your possibility, what you will do will be extremely powerful. The last message, which is the start of our journey. The sky is the limit when our heart is in it.